This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Somewhere in the world, I'm joined by Frank Warren. I don't know where, and I don't think you're going to disclose where either.
I'm in my house.
Doesn't look like your house, Frank. You're somewhere on planet Earth.
Yeah, I'm always on planet. Well, I like to think sometimes I'm on planet Earth. Mind you, the world we're in with all this boxing game, you can be on any planet sometimes.
Very true, especially the last couple of weeks for you. We'll touch on that in a second, Frank. But did you manage to catch the final last night, wherever you are on planet Earth?
Sorry, that broke up there. Can you say again?
I said, did you manage to catch the Europa League final, wherever you are on planet Earth?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Very entertaining, was it?
No, the game was poor. But
sorry, mate, it keeps breaking up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good, Frank. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you just break up, Carl. Sorry, go on, say what you're saying about the game.
Yeah, no, but your old manager with another Europa League.
I know, he's the boss of that, isn't he? I mean, he's done us and then he's done Man United, so he must have something about him. He's done well. Yeah, it's very disappointing for Britain again, or England, I should say.
Anyways, moving on to boxing talk. Obviously, a hectic couple of weeks for you, Frank. Have you experienced? Oh, you're gone there, Frank.
I don't know what's happening there. Oh, that's my fault. That's my fault. You know what I'm doing? I'm twiddling about with this AirPod thing. I open it up and it keeps going on to AirPods. I better put that down. I'm always fidgeting. Sorry about that, mate.
Yes, a hectic last couple of weeks for you, Frank. What was your initial reaction when the news came out that Wilder had won his arbitration case?
Well, look, we was all waiting for the news. We've been waiting a long time, as you know, for it. And cut a long story short, I was a bit disappointed because I did feel that the mediator or the arbitrator, I felt he would allow the fight to go on, but would obviously give some financial recompense to Wilder's side. But having said that, nothing was a foregone conclusion, and I've been banging on about that for God knows how long now. I mean, you know that better than anybody. I remember saying something like that last November. I've done an interview on ESPN saying the same thing. It's always there. That's why it was when we come to arrangement between all the parties for negotiation to negotiate for a site fee and so forth, and agreed our splits and whatever. That's why it was in that agreement that all parties signed. Everyone signed it. The boxer signed it, management signed it, promoter signed it, and it was highlighted in there that there is an arbitration hearing still, a decision still to take place, hearing and decision to take place. And that was where it was. It wasn't a secret. I mean, quite a few times I was asked about it, and I passed on the view from was given from top-ranked American lawyer, which they felt they had a very strong case, and the contract was what was at an end. But until the arbitrator gave that decision, could have been anything. As it turned out, he chose to take the side of Wilder.
If the ruling had happened where Wilder won, which is obviously the case, but throughout this process, were you imagining that if Wilder did win this case, it'd only be financial damages that would be incurred?
Well, the problem is, it's like everything. If you were going to try and settle a matter, the time to do it is before the decision, because at that time, everybody's got an opinion whether they're going to win or not. But more importantly, a bit of, in your mind, if you're settling something, you think, well, if I don't win it, if they win it, it's going to cost me more money. And the fact that he gave the decision, it was impossible to do a deal, because obviously, it didn't get as far as that they were asking for fortunes, or anything. It just didn't get that far. They wanted to fight, and that's where it is. So it was pointless. And at the end of the day, Tyson wanted to fight, and it's just been quite messy. It didn't help all these announcements every other day saying, the thing's signed, the fight's going to be announced, we've agreed terms and all this, when nobody had signed anything. We're all working very hard to make it happen, but nothing was signed. And I didn't see the point of all these statements, because it's not a fight that needs hype. you know, if we announced that fight tomorrow was done, you get an avalanche of applications for tickets, and pay-per-view go through the roof, because it is what it is. It's not something you got to hype up, and it got quite tiresome and boring. And the problem was with it, when these announcements were keep being made by Eddie Hearn, was that, you know, everyone was saying, well, where is the contract? You know, where is it? What's happening? And as nothing was forthcoming, it got to a stage, I think Tyson Gates said, right, you've got 48 hours to get this done, or let's move on. And you know, irrespective of what's happening with the arbitration, fight Wilder, get rid of it, do the fight. And I think it was only the fact he got comfort from speaking personally to Prince Khalid in Saudi Arabia, who actually said, you know, well, gave him all the comfort he needed. That he did that video. But we was also unaware of the fact that Pat English, who was acting on behalf of Usyk's team, had written letters to parties and so forth, saying that if Anthony Joshua was to participate in a unification, that they would be suing. They'd be going for an injunction. So we were unaware of that. No one was made aware of that one. So that was something to come out of left field. So it's pretty messy, and that's why, you know, as much as everybody keeps saying, oh, you know, I'm being negative because I wasn't saying, oh, it's done, it's great, and it's on. I was just being a realist about it. For me, you know, until it was signed and so forth, and a fight of that magnitude needs to be signed. I mean, in the past, I've announced fights where I've agreed terms with somebody, and you know, and then the fight somehow has fallen apart. But a fight of this magnitude, all the T's and dots have to be sorted out, because if they're not, it can cause a problem. And there were other things to be to be done. But you know, now that we've actually drawn a line in the sand. We know where we are. We get on with our commitments, and Tyson will obviously fight on the 24th of July. Hopefully he comes through that. I believe he will come through that. And then hopefully we get this fight on by the end of the year, providing AJ fulfills his contractual obligation. Now, I don't know whether he's going to fight, or he's going to go ahead with the fight with Usyk, or he's going to vacate the title. That's going to be obviously his decision. But both the boxers got to win their respective fights, then we can move on. And for people to say, you know, we didn't want the fight, I mean, I really, it's beyond me to anybody to even consider that from our perspective. You know, this was the money fight. This is the one we've all worked towards. This is where everybody has a day at the races. The boxers have a huge day at the races. The promoters, the managers, the trainers, everybody gets well paid compared with what they've got to do now. So it's ridiculous to even go down that road. And why would we want to jeopardize that fight? Why would either of the boxers want to jeopardize that fight? You know, anything can happen in boxing. We've seen it: cut eyes, punches, lucky punch, big punch, whatever you want to call it. Why do we want to jeopardize it? It's just a great shame we are where we are. But I think that had people have done what they're supposed to have done as per the agreement, that, you know, keeping the announcements, that the announcements between all of us, all parties, it was an agreed announcement, then I think, you know, it may have tempered it, and it may, and I don't know whether these announcements were having any effects on the arbitrator, who think, yeah, hang on a minute, I'm the one who's going to decide what's going on here, not you lot. I don't know whether it did have an effect or not, but these are things that, you know, you have to consider.
Okay. Obviously, Eddie did an interview on our channel earlier this week, and he made some comments. So I'm just going to allow you to respond to some of these comments and put your point of view to them. So the first major point he made was that he stated Team Fury had the ability back in December 2020 to terminate this agreement with Wilder, which would get rid of the trilogy. Have you got a comment on that, please?
Well, he doesn't know he's not seen a copy of the contract between Tyson and between Tyson. Sorry, he's not seen the agreement between Tyson and Deontay Wilder. So, it's, you know, for him to say that, he's just guessing at it. The facts of the matter are, the American attorneys said that they felt the case, that the contract was at an end. That was their opinion. So, you know, for him to say that, and it's a bit like me saying to him, now, why didn't you disclose disclose the fact that you were receiving letters from Usyk's team? We never knew. You know, we never knew about that. That only came out after the Tyson thing. So we can all throw things. It's all very well him saying that, It was in the agreement, and he's talking about December. The agreement we signed between all the parties was in January. So why didn't he bring it up in January? Tell him to go and look at the contract or the agreement that he signed, look at the date of the agreement, and that was before that what he's referring to in December. He signed something in January. If that was such a concern with him, then why did he not highlight that? Because he certainly didn't. It was in the agreement that there was an arbitration. He didn't say to us, he didn't say, oh, is it an end or whatever. He relied on the same advice we did, and the lawyers, and his lawyers participated in quite a few calls with all the lawyers, all the respective parties' lawyers discussed the matter. So he was very much aware of what was going down. So for him to talk and say these things, it's pretty ridiculous.
So he never at any point went to yourselves or Bob and said, go and end that agreement with Wilder because you've got the ability to do so. He never said that.
I have never had a conversation with him about anything to do with this, ever. So that's a fact. I don't know whether he had a conversation with Bob Brown. I don't believe he did, because if he did, if as he is saying that is the case, then why did he sign the agreement in January? Why sign it? Why would you sign something that states there is an arbitration going on? Why would you sign that? It's common sense.
He also said that it's very strange for an arbitrator to rule in favour of putting a fight forward and then doing it before a specific date. In your knowledge, is that strange, Frank, for an arbitrator to do that?
Sorry, say that again?
So he said that it's strange that an arbitrator would force Tyson into a rematch before a specific date, i.e. some date in September. Is that strange to your knowledge for an arbitrator to do that?
No, not. Well, I mean, an arbitrator has the power to arbitrate on an agreement, and that's what he's done. And for an arbitrator to turn around and say, for the arbitrator to say the fight's got to take place, there has to be a cut-off point. I mean, you can't just say the fight has to take place. What is it, this year, next year, or in 2040? There's got to be a cut-off date for this fight to take place. That's a pretty stupid comment to make.
And then since the ruling came in, Frank, did you make any attempts with Shelley Finkel, anyone from Team Wilder, to reach a step-aside deal for Deontay?
I've spoke to Shelley on a few, well, I speak to him nearly every day, because obviously, we've got a couple of fighters that we promoted this. But the fact of the matter is, we, after the decision was given, they just wanted to fight. That's what they want. They want the fight. So what are you going to do? That's what the arbitrator, and so that's what's happening.
What was there no figure or price that they were accepting?
No.
Do you think you could have pleaded with them?
I don't think it's about pleading. I mean, at the end of the day, the position once the decision's given, they're holding all the cards. It's as simple as that. They're holding all the cards. Their position has become, legally much, much stronger. They can stop the fight. If they turn around and say, right, we want 100 million, that's their position. But the fact of the matter is that they just want to get on with the fight. And that's where we are.
So were the conversations...
Same thing, but it's the same situation now that the Usyk situation, because let's say, hypothetically we had agreed a deal or managed to agree a deal, then we've been facing next, we've got to sort out Usyk. And Usyk, as you know, used to be a Matchroom fighter, and I understand he's not happy with Matchroom for some previous stuff. But the bottom line is, they were then about to issue an injunction, which they'd confirmed in writing, apparently on a couple of occasions, to not to us, but to WBO and Matchroom.
Just out of interest, Frank, how far did those conversations with Shelley go? Was it just the point blank, no, we're not even discussing a step aside deal with yourselves? Well,
it's not just Shelley's decision. It's also Al Heyman. Bob Arum was speaking by Al Heyman, I think, over the weekend as well, prior to the arbitrator giving his decision. And he was dealing with that. I speak to Shelley, as I say, on other matters, and that was that came up. But he was speaking with him, but the person, so I understand, who had no intention of taking any for want of a better term, step aside, was Deontay Wilder. He wants to fight.
Do you respect that in a way? You've got to respect that, really.
Well, of course you do. I mean, he's not doing. You know, I can go back many years ago, and I can remember Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis early days when you know. Tyson was more of a handful than he'd become when he fought Lennox, where there was some step asides there as regarding that, and it was, you know, it didn't happen that time, so everybody was pretty peed off of it, as the fans were. So from Wilder's point of view, yeah, you've got to accept, you know, got to respect him for that. The fact of the matter is, he's got a new trainer. Obviously, the trainer and him have got their idea how they're gonna what their game plan is going to be in their mind to beat Tyson Fury. Me, I don't know what they can come up with unless he gets really with a real lucky punch. He's never going to outbox Tyson, and Tyson, as he's shown, has taken his best shots in the past. But he wants to fight, and he feels he wants to fight after making all those ridiculous excuses for losing. Now he wants to get back in there. So the reality of all this is everyone being hypothetical, you know, coming up with certain scenarios. The fact is that now Tyson Fury has to fulfill a legal obligation, and rather than wait until September, up until September, to get it on as soon as possible to get rid of this obligation, it'll go on the 24th of July in Vegas, and hopefully that will then be the end of it. Well, it will be the end of it. You know, Tyson comes through, that'll be his side of it dealt with.
And just to make crystal clear, you said that the arbitration procedure and the what was going on was put in writing to Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. So just to make this more crystal clear, you could not have given any more reassurance to Matchroom about this procedure that was going on.
If I sign all of us signed a joint agreement, and in that joint agreement it states no making any public statements unless we all agree on it. So we all know that he's disregarded that, because he's been making announcements on, you know, if it's not a 24-hour basis, it's certainly a 48-hour basis to everybody. He's been making announcements, as I've said on many occasions, to make an announcement. And it's gone on and on and on. And you know, and every time I've been asked, until it's signed, it means nothing. So why even go out there? Why do that? Is it the ego of it? I don't know what it is. Is it the fact that he only had one fight left with his contractually has one fight left with AJ, that he's trying to keep him happy? Don't worry, we're doing it. So I've got no idea. Is AJ going to renew with him after his next fight? Who knows what's going to happen? Do you want to keep his position there, that he's in for 2 fights? You know, the fight with Tyson and the rematch, it extends his contract by an extra fight. I don't know. I have no idea. Only he knows in his head why that. But the fact is, he breached what we agreed. And secondly, it is as plain as the nose on his face. It's as plain as that in that agreement, it said there is an arbitration hearing to still take place. So if you didn't feel you wanted to get into that agreement, you thought, well, let the arbitration take place first, let's see how it pans out, then I'll sign something. That's your choice. But if you sign it knowing there's an arbitration to take place, and we all know, everybody knows, because the question was being regularly asked, what's happening with the arbitration? As we all keep saying, we're waiting for the arbitrator to hear it and give the decision. I mean, that's plain as anything. Everybody knows that, who's been following any of this stuff. So he knew what the position is. Everybody knew what the position was in there. What their opinions were, whether the case was winnable or the arbitration was winnable or not, that's a personal opinion. The only one who can give the decision on that is the arbitrator, and he did. And so the view given by the American lawyers, top ranks lawyers, you know, what they felt was a very strong case didn't turn out to be. But that's lawyers will say, will give an opinion. That's what you paid them for, and that's what you fight cases for with your lawyers. So the arbitrator came up with what he said, and as I said, whether he was influenced by what was all the stuff that was going down, I had no idea. But you know what? None of it matters anything now, because he said, you said, what said. Reality is, the fight was never, as I've said all the way through, ever signed. Until it was signed, it wasn't a fight. And that is a fact of life. So now a fact of life is Tyson's fighting on the 24th, and now a fact of life is AJ has to defend his title against Usyk or vacate his title. And if he vacates his title, then there won't be 3 belts on the line when Tyson comes through. There'll be 4 belts on the line. There'll be 3 belts on the line. So I hope he does go fulfill his obligation to Usyk. And if he doesn't, then Usyk will fight Joe Joyce. If not, Joe Joyce will be the mandatory to the winner of that fight.
Got you back. So, you know, when I was speaking to you, like over the last 5 months about this fight, and I was hassling you with Fury Joshua questions, what was your skepticism based on? How much of it was it based on this arbitration case, or were there other factors as well, Frank?
No, there was other factors. I mean, there were things. Look, until important things like, we all said BT and Sky, they're both going to show the fight, but the terms were never agreed. They never met to agree the terms. And those terms had to be agreed, and I think they would have been done. But everything was like it was a foregone conclusion as far as that was done. And the terms, and let's make it, it's no secret now, and I never sort of banged on about Saudi Arabia, but it's going to be in Saudi Arabia. There were certain things there that needed to be agreed and were being negotiated. And I like to believe they were going in the right direction with Prince Khalid and his team. And everybody was working positively to that. But there were things that still had to be sorted out on our side. And they were the arbitration and as I mentioned, the TV situation, and as it's turned out, the obligation that Usyk's side filled Anthony Joshua had to them.
And how was your dealings throughout this process with Prince Khalid and Saudi Arabia? Because there have been claims that you didn't put any work towards this.
Well, look, we can't put work towards this. What are we going to do? Have 6 of us all picking up the phone each time speaking to the guy, driving him crazy? I mean, it's pointless, isn't it? It's absolutely pointless. What we did, our lawyers all decided on a way forward, decided on what was required collectively from the fight side. I'm talking about Tyson and AJ's side, all the respective lawyers, all participating in calls. And as a result of that, then to speak to Prince Khalid or the Saudi Arabian side and say, this is what we want. And that was the negotiation, not putting work into it. I mean, he was telling everybody he was flying around the world. Where did he go? Where did he fly around the world? Show us those passport stamps that you got to do that fight. I'm going to the Far East. I'm going here and there. He didn't go, no, he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. It was done on the phone. And what the work we put into it, one of the things, what I put very lot of work into is ensuring that we get some cooperation from the 2 British TV companies. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a fight because both boxers had contractual obligations. And that's what you had to deal with. It was the actual contractual obligations that the fighters had to be dealt with, which included the arbitration situation. Things to be dealt with. Rather spout your mouth off every 5 minutes saying you've got this done and that done, when in fact you had nothing done. Where is the agreement that you said has been signed? Where is it? I've never seen it. No one's seen it. It just got tedious, and even now going on about it. I mean, it's just too boring for words. It's just ridiculous. Reality is, I said earlier, hopefully it'll happen in December now. And by the way, I don't think the fight would have gone on in August anyway. I don't think that would happen. I think there'd have been a problem with that date. And being realistic about it again is that maybe sometimes out of bad comes good, because it'll be a better time of year for Saudi Arabia for the fight to go on in December, in my opinion. I may be wrong, but in my opinion it will be. And hopefully the COVID situation will be really, really got on top of by then, and it'll be safe for everybody to travel. We want to go to the fight. They want to go out there. So that's where we are. And as I say, it's about dealing with everything realistically and being realistic and keep making statements when they were not required.
Well, in terms of July 24th, Tyson signed the dotted line on Saturday at Taylor Ramirez. and it seemed like Wilder had signed 3 days previous to that. So there have been suggestions that this was done very quickly, and it was very strange how quickly this fight was put together. What's your response to
Well,
that?
it's not strange because, look, I don't agree with you on that, Umar. It's not strange at all. Like I said to you, there were calls over the weekend before the arbitrator gave his decision. Once he gave his decision, then you had to move. The more time it takes to negotiate something, the more time it takes to do it, then that fight would go on in September. That would jeopardize the fight taking place in December if they both come through their respective fights. So the most prudent thing to do was to get it done, get it signed off, get the fight on the 24th of July, get rid of Tyson's obligation that the arbitrator says he has. That's what's done. And it can't be done no quicker than that. And that's what's happened.
Okay. And it's definitely going to be on July 24th in Vegas. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think we'll learn of a venue quickly as well? Because that hasn't been confirmed.
It's the, I'll pronounce this correctly, Allegiant Stadium. New stadium.
50,000 people there.
Well, they're going to announce it anyway officially. I shouldn't even be saying that, but it's going on in Vegas.
Okay. So if Fury does the job against Wilder, which was what we expect, and if Joshua does the job against Usyk, do you think the terms that you agreed or were agreeing for this summer fight, that they can be easily transferable for December?
I've got no idea. There's been no conversation since. So I think that the fact of the matter is, whilst I don't want to tempt fate, I want to see them get their fights out of the way, and maybe there'll be some talks before then. But let's get the obligations out of the way. Then hopefully there's still interest to do it there. Or other than that, we've got to look for somewhere else to do the fight.
And just out of interest, quickly give me your thoughts on both Fury Wilder 3 and Joshua Usyk. How do you think they go, Frank?
Well, Deontay, as I mentioned earlier, he's got a new trainer. He's come up with various excuses why he got beat. I can only look at what I've seen in 2 fights. In the first fight, Tyson got robbed. And the second fight, Tyson did a job on him. And I don't see what he can bring to the table other than his big punch, as he did last time. He's not going to suddenly develop great boxing skills. He is what he is. He's a very dangerous puncher. But Tyson can't be taking anything for granted. He's got to be at his best. If he is, I think he'll do the same as he did in the last fight. I think I just think he's that and be taking out his frustration, but venting his frustration for being out the ring so long. So I fancy Tyson to win that. As regarding Usyk, you've got to go with AJ if they go with a fight because of these. I think the size does matter in this fight. The fact that Usyk was a cruiserweight up to about a year ago. I don't know. I think he's about 34, 35 years of age now. It's not like he's a young guy moving up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. I think he's naturally a cruiserweight. Could probably make that weight still if he wished to do so. I just think it'd be too. I think Anthony Joshua would be too big for him. Having said that, AJ sometimes the way he fights, he gets clips, and he has been clipped in a few of his fights. Been caught and wobbled in a few. Usyk's not a bad boxer, and if he can get under that big jab, and get inside, who knows? He may hit the button. But I think they're both favourites in their fights. Both of the respective champions will go into their fights as favourites.
I don't think the Matchroom side and Joshua's side have ruled out vacating. They have talked about the potential Dillian White rematch, doing that. So I don't think they're ruling out vacating. If you were advising Anthony Joshua or running Anthony Joshua's career in this situation, what would you tell him to do?
Well, if they want the 4 belts on the line, then he's got to defend against Usyk. It's as simple as that. If he doesn't, then he's got to look to see his other options. If one of his options is Dillian White, you may as well fight Usyk if you're going to fight Dillian White.
Back. Oh, I was just gonna get onto Joe Joyce and how this leaves kind of his situation. So obviously we know if Joshua vacates, then it's Usyk and Joe Joyce. Quite simple. But if Joshua does defend his WBO and fight Usyk, then what's the short-term plan for Joe whilst he's waiting as a mandatory fighter?
He's going to fight on the 24th of July, probably. So we'll just see what happens in the next few days, and then they'll make their decision what they're going to do with the WBO, and then we can make our decision.
Frank, when you say on the 24th of July, do you mean on Tyson's undercard or do you mean in the UK?
No, in the UK.
All right, so you're going to have like a UK card running into Fury Wilder 3 as a box office event.
Well, our intention is to do a UK card, yeah.
Okay. All right, so who do you reckon could feature on that, Frank, apart from Joe Joyce?
I'm not. I'll be honest. We're working on it at the moment, so I want to make sure a couple of guys that I want on the card, two of them have said they may or may not be ready. So we're going to find out in the next couple of days whether they are going to be fit and ready to fight on that show. Okay. So it'll be a decent show. It'll be a good show.
Okay. Let's talk about another heavyweight. Next week, he's back, Daniel Dubois against Bogdan Dinu. Again, if he wins this fight, he can put himself right back into title contention for WBA. Excited to see Daniel back in the ring?
I am. It's been a while out, and obviously he had to take time because that was quite a serious injury he got in his fight against Joe. So yeah, I'm pleased to see him back in. He's a young guy, and I think he's got a lot to give, still to give, and this is going to be quite a good test for him. And if he does come through, it becomes WBA interim title, so he gets himself back in the mix again.
And I hear we've got fans next week in Telford, Frank.
Got 1,000 fans. We're allowed 1,000, so it's not a lot. But I'll tell you what, after the last year or so of shows with no fans in, I'd be so welcome to get some atmosphere in the venues. But it's been very difficult for the fighters, lack of atmosphere. So as I say, I'm looking forward to all being back at the show.
Yeah, it's been good to see it at the football. Obviously, have you managed to get to the Emirates yet? Since fans have come back?
I was there on Sunday.
Okay. That must have felt good.
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
That must have felt good to see the fans kind of back in.
Well, it was good to see the fans there. It was good to see the demonstration, and we won. But I'm afraid our season petered out, didn't it, completely?
We'll see what happens with Arsenal next season. Tommy Fury also back in action next week. Obviously, Jake Paul. Yeah. There was a lot of noise with Jake Paul. Going back and forward. He's done a deal with Showtime. What do you think about that, Frank?
Yeah. Well, it's the era we're in now, isn't it? Showtime are massive operators in the States, and they see some potential there, and it'd be great if we can build that fight between him and Tommy.
Yeah, we'll see Tommy back in
a big fight. Big fight, but Tommy's out next week. He came back from the States over the weekend. He's been training out there, working with Tyson, so he's back now, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in action next week.
Most certainly. Frank, I do want to ask you about Jack Catterall, who's obviously in line to face the undisputed Josh Taylor. We'll talk about him in a second, but just your comment on Josh's magnificent win on the weekend and becoming an undisputed champion.
Well, it was a phenomenal performance. I mean, he done extremely well, didn't he? He is. I mean, was that his 18th fight?
He's 18-0. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, 18. I mean, that is a phenomenal achievement to hold 4 belts. I think it's about the 6th guy in history of boxing to hold the 4 belts. I think it's something like that. It's the most amazing achievement, and they should be very proud of it. Scotland and the UK should be proud of it. I'm sure they are. And now Jack's is mandatory. Jack stepped aside to allow that fight, that unification between him and Ramirez to happen. So now it's Jack's turn, and that's a good domestic bust-up.
So what's the process with that? Does that have to be completed, i.e. a deal in a certain time frame?
It's more or less, that'll be more or less done. That's not going to be a problem dealing with that one.
Okay. And are we looking at Edinburgh for that fight, Frank?
I'm not sure of the venue yet, but it'll be sometime, hopefully in August, late August.
Okay, brilliant. That's going to be amazing. 2 domestic fighters fighting for the undisputed titles.
I mean, when's that ever happened?
I don't think it has.
We thought it was going to happen with the heavyweights, didn't we?
It's not so as easy as with the.
They beat them to it. That's another record. They've beaten them to it. 2 Brits have beaten them to it.
Any updates on your latest world champion in Sonny Edwards? What's happening with him?
Sonny will be out in autumn, sometime in September, I think. We get him out in September, and he's got to fight. He's got to fight his mandatory by the looks of it.
Okay.
The Filipino. So we'll work on that and get that one done.
And lastly, before we close off, I can't interview and not ask about your light heavyweight sensations. So Lyndon, Anthony Yard, Callum Johnson, what's going on with them?
They're all going to be fighting in July.
What, on the same card?
That's the intention.
Really?
Yeah.
That will be interesting fight week.
It will be, won't it? And we're all sitting on the same table.
Will you get Joshua Boazzi? Will you invite him to watch ringside?
He's welcome to come. He's welcome to step across the road anytime he likes.
Do you think him and Callum Johnson is it a realistic fight next, Frank?
I think it'd be a great fight, don't you? I mean, I think it'd be a great fight for the fans. That great fight for both the guys. I'd love to see that one. That'd be exciting while it lasts.
Certainly would be. I think any of them matched against each other would be something to watch.
We're quite blessed with light heavyweights. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely. Well, listen, Frank, I appreciate your time on IFL TV as always, answering everything as honestly as you can. So, yeah, appreciate the time.
Cheers, mate. You look after yourself, and I'll speak to you soon, Omar. I'll see you next week.
Well, I'll see you when I'm looking at you.
Oh, you beat me to it.